Okay, let's go here. Here we go with how to plan, sell, and deliver online EDI. Session number one. Why? Why do I think it's a good idea to do online EDIs? Let me get into it. Let's start with the cons. Okay, there's always on the one hand, on the other hand. And frankly, uh, well, you'll see. When we have four people, or four, two co-facilitators, two participants in a hotel room for 4 days this started in 1987. And we'd have an executive and their spouse, along with me and a colleague or two other facilitators in a hotel room for 4 days. And we had lots of things. We had a celebration dinner on the last night, a bunch of things like that, because it was just powerful. So over those 4 days, you get a really, because you're in an LDI for 4 days, you get this massive, the day one builds, day two, day three, day four. By the end of day four, there's this powerful energy field that's been created. And so in a way, that never happens. So that's a miss. I think something equally valuable happens, but that doesn't happen. Secondly, I think it's a challenge, obviously for some of you, because you've told me this, to tell somebody that you want 5,000 or 7,000 euros, or what is that, 320 some thousand PLN or something like that, for 10 to 12 coaching sessions. That's a big ask. Well, if you think of it as charging like what you normally charge for a coaching session, you're never going to get there. You need to sell it and think of it as a program. It's an educational experience. It's a course that lasts for 90 days, generally speaking. So think of it as like 8 to 10 weeks of very intensive education, learning, and development for you and your partner. I think you need to kind of for yourself, you need to start there so you're comfortable with that. Okay. And I think for me, it's a challenge to keep that person or that couple in mind during the week. You go for 4 days. I'm in the room I don't, in the old days, I didn't even look at my email. Now I can't do that. I'm addicted. But when you're in a hotel room with two people, they're your focus. You wake up thinking about them. You go to bed thinking about them. Not a problem. When you do a session, let's say on a Monday, and then you have 7 days, and then you have another one, the downside of that is, for me, staying focused. And what I do is I have a little yellow sticky that I put where I can see it that has their two names on it right in front of me. And that will prompt me during the day to think, oh, I know what I want to send them. I'm going to send them a message thinking about you. Do you have any thoughts about your persona? I stay mentally in a kind of an ongoing dialogue once or twice during the week. And of course, I have all these audio tapes and videotapes that are designed for each of those sections of material from the book. And so I send them those as well, which you absolutely have access to if you want. But that's a challenge, remembering them during the week. And then it's hard to maintain momentum when life gets in the way for them. It's happened to me twice, and I'm so disappointed. I was working with a couple in Poland, very, high-powered executives, both of them. And, shit happens and stuff came up in their lives. And I blame myself. I think, well, maybe I didn't do a good enough job of helping them see how powerful this developmental experience was. Hopefully they would see that what they're learning is helping them deal with the shit that comes up. And so I feel a little bit like a failure in these two times when the couples just said, John, there's just too much going on. We just can't keep up with this. So, but anyway. But that's a potential con. Life happens. When you set aside 4 days, you can set aside 4 days. But, 2 hours every Monday works most of the time. But, and we move it around sometimes. They'll go, hey, can we skip a week? I'll go, well, can we put one in on Friday or something like that? That's how it works. And these are the pros, which I think for me outweigh the cons. You only need to make one sale, not 8 or 10. If you want to get 8 or 10 people in the room, in an open LDI, you got to make 8 or 10 sales. I think that's one of the hardest things in the world these days. When I look back on it, I don't know how we succeeded. That's why the LDI for me and my partner Mark, when we did them, it was like a hobby. We were leadership and change consultants. We did leadership programs. We did organizational change consultations, and the LDI, online LDI, was something we did. Well, the EDI, see, we did the solo program because a lot of the executives from the clients we were working with would send their individuals one at a time to the EDI. But then we started the group program. It's like, whoa, we got to get 8 or 10. And we did them with 12, 15 people in the early days because the GPS process wasn't as expanded as it is now. So it's really hard to make, but the pro is you make one sale and it's good money. It really is good money. It's clean money. Why? Because you don't have any venue costs, you don't have any travel costs. And for me, you don't have the hassle of getting the venue, dealing with the hotel, booking the hotel. And in fact, when usually if I do an EDI, it's kind of like a corporate LDI where I don't have to worry about the venue and all that stuff. The client picks it up. So I love that about the online EDI. I'm sitting at my freaking desk right here, right now. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm doing world-class transformational work with people sitting right here. What's not to like about that? You have this great practice time. Let's say it's on Monday. So you give them a chunk on Monday. You give them the pinch. You do a thing on facing the tiger on Monday. They have a whole week to practice, to think, reflect, and plus I'm sending them little things about the tiger, a little maybe a video or a question or two or something like that. Now remember, on Monday we're going to start working with that tiger. Now, as you'll see when we get into how to design it, I always start a session by looking back at the last session. Once or twice we never get to the fresh stuff because there's so much to unpack from the last session. That's why I love this next one, which is the flexibility. You can flex the content. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you have everybody in a room or when you're doing an LDI, you pretty much, you can't stop everything to deal with somebody. In this case, you can stop everything to deal with somebody because they're the only one in the room. So you can stop the train if you have to deal with somebody. And in fact, once or twice, I've even taken uh, the thing that comes at the end, like how to operationalize a stretch. I've even, because it just presented itself, I've just grabbed the slides on my laptop and I move them up, if it makes sense. You can move these things around if you need to. I love that about this. You're in charge. And I think it's more likely that a spouse or partner will say yes to this. Quite often they're sitting right beside each other at the dining room table or something like that in the living room. It's something they can do together, and I think it's easier it seems to make more sense for some reason to do it this way. And then very, very strong relationship building happens in online EDI. You're spending some really, really deep time talking about deep stuff with people in the context of sometimes in the context of their partner. Man, I'm telling you, I I would hate to be asked, do people go deeper in the solo program or in the group program? In the old days when we were doing both, people would say, boy, I'm glad I did the solo program. I could never have talked about what I talked about with you in a group. And then the people that did the group version would say, God, I'm so glad I did the group version because there's so many, I learned so much from so many of my colleagues. So I don't know about that one, whether that's a pro or con, but you're going to have a very strong relationship with that person or those people forever in their life. And of course, it's true in the LDI as well. But man, I'm telling you what, when I see an EDI grad in the room, so to speak, it's run across the street and hug kind of thing. Okay, and so when we come back for session 2, I'm going to jump in. I need to do the pre-work. I forgot about the pre-work. I'm going to have a special session on that next. So I'll catch you later. And let me see if I can stop the recording now. No, I got to stop the share and then I can stop the recording. Okay.